polling that's begun in West Bengal for the crucial and sensitive Panchayat polls being seen as a litmus test for the mega 2024 Lok Sabha elections. Now, reports of violence is emerging, with the TMC claiming 3 people have died in Murshidabad as well as Malda. Reports of violence coming from Cooch Behar as well. A polling booth was vandalized and ballot papers were set on fire. In North 24 Parganas, villagers are staging a protest and they've been blocking roads. They're saying that they've been protesting because an agent of independent candidate was killed last night. So reports of violence that is being reported in the run-up to the Panchayat polls. Also, a lot of violence had been reported in various parts of West Bengal. 18 people had been killed in alleged political violence in that run-up to the elections. This included a teenager. The Calcutta High Court has ordered the deployment of central paramilitary forces for these elections and even ordered them to stay for 10 days after the results are declared to prevent any sort of poll violence or post-poll violence. But we are seeing reports of violence that is coming out from earlier this morning. West Bengal has a history of violence when it comes to elections that's been rampant during the communist regime and continues till date. The state government claims it's been able to reduce the number of incidences, but the media is the one who's using these sporadic incidents in order to paint a fake narrative. Now, earlier, the State Election Commission, which has come under fire from the governor for allegedly not doing enough to stop the violence, has now taken into account 800 companies of central forces. They have positioned them for, security reasons in various parts of the state.
This is the most sacred day for democracy, where the ordinary man on the street is empowered to vote according to his conscience. He says that he is not able to vote. Maybe stray incidents, but there should be a stop to it. Elections must be through ballots, not bullets. This change is to be there. Whenever complaints are received, I convey to the competent authorities, that is the State Election Commissioner. In all fairness, I can say, I get instant replies from him. If this is happening, then what is the reason? That is something which the entire civil society has to think about.
And we have Saurabh joining us on the phone line. Saurabh, get us a sense of what is the reality on the ground, with many claiming that it's the media that's just picking up these random instances and, painting this fake narrative. But we have fresh violence that has erupted, with the TMC claiming that 3 people have been killed today in parts of Murshidabad as well as Malda.
Well, the violence in West Bengal during elections is not something that's new. It's been there historically, and of course it's happened over the years, and it hasn't changed even when political regimes in the state have changed. That's one. Secondly, Panchayat polls in 2018 saw a lot of violence, and 2023 was expected to be better. But at this point, though, while there is, while the final tally perhaps in terms of, casualties, in election-related violence in 2018 was quite high. Where it stands is going to stand this time is still not clear. But this morning there also has been, of course, incidents of violence, and of course there is also, violence reports of violence coming in from Cooch Behar, where a polling booth was vandalized, ransacked. Then you have reports of violence coming in from Malda and Murshidabad, which are again 2 sensitive districts. And we've heard some incidents of violence in some of the neighboring districts of Calcutta or Kolkata. But apart from that, there seems to be largely, if one compares it with 2018, perhaps it's not as bad. But the point is really that this time around, there should have been an effort to ensure that there was no violence, because that is something that, the Calcutta High Court also said, and deployed central forces. But despite the deployment of central forces, there seems to have been some incidents of violence that have been reported. The Trinamool Congress is saying, what's the point of deploying central forces if these incidents can't be prevented? At the same time, the Trinamool Congress has also said, we do not object, even though the government initially did object it in court. The Trinamool Congress has welcomed the deployment of central forces, saying that its political performance in the elections is not affected by, deployment of central forces, as the Congress and BJP and left have been clamoring for deployment of central forces. That's the Trinamool Congress. But the other thing to note in this violence is also, the number of, the casualties. And if you break it up with political affiliation, then it seems that the Trinamool Congress seems to have lost more supporters to violence than perhaps the opposition parties in the state. And that, of course, is indicative of the fact that it could be, that because there are also so many independent candidates, people who may not have been given tickets by the ruling party, that could be one of the explanations for that. So in that context, really, West Bengal is still seeing violence during elections. If the answer was deploying central forces would ensure a violence-free election, that clearly isn't the case. But perhaps if these forces hadn't been there, the incidence of violence would have been much higher. And in the past, we've seen, violence in the elections, and that seems to be the trend or, the pattern this time around as well.